So today I'm planting up some canna, and this is one of those show-stopping tropical plants. The leaves are gorgeous. You can see this one has some green, this one has bronze. There's other varieties that are variegated, but it's the flowers that really put on a show. They're really intensely colored, vibrant colors, and the plants get huge if you grow them right. So this is a plant that we didn't always have good luck with. In fact, many years ago, we tried canna and didn't go so well for us. They stayed small, they were lackluster, and we were overall very disappointed. So we just said, we're gonna stay away from canna. It's not a plant that we can grow very well. But last year, I decided I'm gonna crack the canna code. And what I did was I did a deep dive. Sorry, there's snow on the roof and it's fallen off, so that's what that noise is. Anyway, I went and did a deep dive into growing canna, so I made sure that I picked a variety that I thought we'd have the best success with, and then we changed a couple things with how we plant them. So let me take you in the back where we plant, and I'll give you a little, I guess, background on how we do this. The first change we made was we increased the size of the pot. So in the past, we put them in either a 4-inch or a 5-inch. And then after some research, it sounds as though cannas will grow and grow and grow based on the size of their roots. So by putting them in a bigger container now, it allows us to then sell a bigger plant. So if we kept them in a small container, they would stay small. And we'd like people to have a little bit of an advantage when they put them out in their yard. So putting them in a bigger pot means they're going to be taking home a bigger plant in the end. And we fill our pots a certain way because we're working with a pretty dry soil. And if you haven't worked with a dry soil before, I would recommend giving it a little bit more moisture than this. It doesn't have to be really wet, but it can be a little tricky because when you put these wet plugs into dry soil, the water kind of wicks away from the plant, so you got to make sure that you're watering it properly. Very easy for people to water it and the water only goes down to here, so there's a little trick to it, but we've kind of got it down, so I'm going to trust that I can manage this. And this is how we film though, because what's happened in the past, if we have this dry, light soil, if I fill it and I keep it nice and fluffy, what ends up happening is I put the plug in, and then when we water it, it sinks down. So now what we do is we give it a little push, and I mean, that's how much it compacted there. Now, it wouldn't compact that much with the water, but a lot of times the soil kind of swallows up the plug, so the plug starts sinking to the bottom and it gets eaten up by the soil, and that's a really bad situation to be in. So with any of the plants that we put in bigger containers, we're very cautious about that. So then what I do is just kind of fluff it up. I've got kind of my certain amount that I put in that I like to do. That's just my thing. And so this is kind of where I like to be. It's fluffy up at the top, so I can then press it in later. So here are the varieties that we have. So this one here is the yellow. Now normally I would use the peg and I push them out from the bottom, but I think these are they're really easy to come out, so I don't have to worry too much about breaking the stems. With a lot of the plants, we have to be very careful. You don't want to yank it out because that can be a big problem. So I'm just gonna make a little hole in each one of these, and then I put it in, and my technique is I kind of push the plug down and then I pack the soil around it. And I want to be able to just get it. Now, a lot of our plants we don't pack quite this much, but with this big pot and with kind of the technique that I use, this is how I do it, and it's worked, so I'm going to keep doing it. That's kind of one of the things about gardening, is we want to make sure and do the things that work and then kind of change the things that don't. So this is a mixed tray, so I have to be really careful that I only pull from the one row so that I don't get my varieties mixed up. So the one that I'm planting right now is yellow, and I also have mango and bronze orange. So nice little mix there. Let's get this one in. Now, I don't put any fertilizer in these right now. There's a little bit of fertilizer in the soil, and then also we fertilize in our water in the greenhouses, so I don't worry about that. This is how we did it last year, and they did fantastic. They do like a little bit of heat, so we put them in our hottest greenhouse, and that's worked really well for us. So let me get these all in. Okay, so these are all planted. They're all pretty centered, pretty level as far as being consistent, so I'm happy about that. One thing that we do that a lot of places don't do is we do finish them off with some rice hulls, and the rice hulls act as a bit of a mulch, so it controls moisture, but also with these plants that have a lot of soil in the beginning. Now these cannas are going to send up lots of shoots and you won't even see much of the soil later on in the season, but a lot of times the soil-borne insects like fungus gnats and stuff like these kind of plants because there's a big nice wet soil area for them to hang out in and kind of have their little romantic encounters in. Now the next step is to water these in. If I had used a really moist soil, I'd be very careful about how much water I put in there. I don't want to overwater them. And with using dry soil, I need to make sure that I'm getting moisture pretty far down because I want the roots to be able to spread out, and I don't want the dry soil to just suck all the water away from the plant, because that will be no good to us either. And our cannas we keep consistently moist, so we don't let them dry out, but we don't keep them super wet either, and they did fantastic for us. We did find that the warmer it was, the better they did, and let me tell you, these plants got huge last year and they were so prolific. We had a beautiful mango one in a big pot, and let me tell you, give it that space and that thing just, it sent up so many stalks. It was just loaded with them, lots of flowers on them, they bloom constantly. That's the other nice thing. And when the blooms are done, they're not entirely attractive, but they're not necessarily unattractive either. So you can leave them the way they are, but I usually think they look better that when they're done, you kind of cut them back. Now you can dig up your canna at the end of the season and store it over the winter and then bring it out again and have it grow back. So that's one of those plants that you could bring back, but you do have to dig it up. It can't freeze or else it'll just turn to mush. But a lot of people have done it. We have staff members who are trying it this year. I'm very curious. I might try to do it myself next year. We'll wait and see. But hey, not too hard to take care of as well. This is one of those plants that we just kind of kept it watered, gave it a little food now and then, and it just did its own thing. So I'm going to say canna, thumbs up for me. Before I sign off, I am going to let you in on how I water this drier soil. I didn't mean to make it sound like it's some kind of top secret method or technique that I have. Really what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll give them kind of a general amount of water that I think is going to be adequate for what they have. I try to stay on a little bit drier side because I don't want to overwater them. Then I go back to the very first one that I watered, and what I will literally do is take my finger and run it down the side of the pot and go down as far as I can get just to see kind of the moisture levels and get a sense for how much moisture is in there. I'm okay if the bottom part is still pretty dry and if the top part's super wet, as long as that middle part is relatively damp and has a good amount of moisture in it, then I'm pretty satisfied with it. But quite often I have to add a little bit more. And as I'm watering, I tend to do a little bit of a count in my head. So it might be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 as I'm going over each plant. And then that kind of lets me know how much water I'm letting out. It's a very loose kind of measuring technique. And as long as my water pressure stays the same, I'm going to be pretty consistent across them all. So once I get the water to the amount that I want in that first pot, then I'll actually lift it up and get a sense for how much it should weigh. And then I'll kind of compare the other pots to it. So sometimes I'll just go through and just check sections just to see how close they are. But with specific plants, we will go through and I will check every single one. I know with the dahlias, my sister will check every single dahlia when we have young dahlias, because those are plants that can be a little bit sensitive to, say, overwatering or underwatering. So we want to make sure that we're catching the ones that don't have enough water and giving the ones that need more the amount that they need. So that's how we do it. So weight is a pretty good way. We can't necessarily go through and go with a measuring cup on each one. So the weight is kind of our shortcut that we use, and it works for us. It's not perfect, but hey, it gets the job done. So I wonder if you guys have planted out cannas before, if you had great success with them. If you have, let me know. If you have any tips, please leave them in the comments, because I always love hearing what you guys have to add to this, because you know so much stuff. It's just amazing. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys all next time. It's going to be a busy week.